This video might not be for you, okay? If you're one of those dopamine junkies who, like to grass hop from video to get some quick hit, not for you, okay? This is for those of you who actually want to take time to learn something about design, about modeling, about rendering, lighting, all these things, because they're interconnected, right? So what I'm going to do in this video, I'm going to get this design of the hovercraft I've modeled recently in Plasticity, and I'm going to bring you through the whole journey of modeling it, creating it, and then we're going to talk about the render and edit, because like I said, everything is connected, everything is important. All right, so let's get started. It's going to be a loose chat. All right, and first I'm going to tell you how I came up with an idea. So let me show you, because a lot of people ask me this and they said, dude, like, how do you come up with ideas for, for your models? Where do you get the inspiration from? So what I usually do is when I model something, I spend a long time on internet or just digging through my PureRef files, through images on Pinterest. It's fantastic for it, ArtStation, whatever. And I look for something that's going to tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, look, this is fucking cool. Let's do this, right? And what I'm looking for is a sort of a visual key, a visual anchor, something that's going to grab me, some kind of a detail, shape, a curvature, whatever, balance of things that I'm going to be like, holy shit, that's really cool. So I was looking for some things, and I was looking, for example, at this bike, and I kind of liked it. It was a bit heavy for me, so I was trying to repaint it and kind of redesign it a bit and come up with some more aggressive ideas. But then again, I was like, maybe not that one. And I kept looking. I found a lot of cool stuff, but then I found this, right? And this is a really simple shape. But what I really liked about it is that front, right? It's kind of like a robust, very simple front. I like simple things, simple shapes. They're very powerful, and I like the combination of the squarish front with the round back engine and the middle part with the seat. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. Let's do something with this one, right? So that was the inspiration. Now, going back to modeling, let's just have a look at this one. I'm going to turn off the edges for a second. Just a quick announcement before I continue. We recently launched a brand new coaching program, a personal coaching program. It's called Hard Surface Academy. So if you're interested in getting our personal help with your goals, modeling, plasticity, Blender, whatever it may be, check the link in the video description, go to our website, read about it, and watch the video about the program. And if you're interested, then apply. We're gonna have a quick chat on a call and see if you're a good fit for the program, and if you are, then welcome on board. So anyway, click the link in the video description if you are interested in personal coaching. And now we're gonna go back to the video. So I started modeling with the front here because, like I said, I really like the the overall feel of this kind of a blocky shape. I wanted to make it a bit more supple though, so I did kind of heavy bevels. And this is, this was the first thing I've built, okay? And based on that shape, I was moving forward, creating other details. Like, for example, if you look at this cut here, this is simply an inverted or turn around this corner here. So it's this corner just simply flipped 90 degrees and it's been cut here, right? Then this element here kind of, echoes the entire piece, right? So it's kind of like an element inside of an element. And then we have this beautiful negative space, completely empty. And I wanted to make it empty because it's empowering the whole model. I wanted this long elongated bonnet with these kind of, pistons or whatever the fuck it is. I don't know. I'm not a car guy. I don't give a shit. I just drive them. And because it just, again, empowers, gives this model this kind of like a sportsy and muscle car-like kind of a, idea, right? The elongated bonnet and then just kind of a shorter back, right? And then we got this cut here with this kind of, fin that was added at the end. Now the middle part here was kind of simple because I wanted to keep it simple. I wanted to make it, from one block of steel that would be kind of holding the whole structure. So kind of like a, like a beam or something. And all I wanted to do is simply echo the angles and the design language from this first element. So I echoed the suppleness of the bevels. I also echoed the angles. So for example, this angle here is exactly the same as this one here. And you know, this again, this angle is a flipped version of this angle. So it's simply, you know, I took the cutter and I flipped it because I wanted to maintain the visual language. I wanted to echo as many elements as possible to make it look cohesive, right? The same here, you got, you know, repeating of the angles, and that was the idea for this middle part here. And then we have the engine at the back, which is super simple, and it's the kind of a, well, one of 3 round things in this design, well, 4, because we have 1, 2, 3, and the engine. But I wanted to break it with one blocky element, which is going to be kind of, you know, corresponding to this blocky front, which is this part here with these intakes, right, going around the engine, right? And then we get the engine in the back, you know, just had some fun with some fins, whatever, flaps, whatnot. Very simple stuff. And if you look at this design from afar here, the focus kind of goes to the 2/3, which is somewhere here, because, you know, the front is very kind of plain and sort of really calm. The same with the back, you got these massive flaps with not much detail, and then you got this concentration of detail here in the middle, and that was the idea, right? So that's the basic concept of, you know, of this model. But when I was modeling it, I was thinking about, you know, the details, and this is a really important thing because, you know, when I coach on academy or anyone really in our group, I am receiving the same questions over and over again. How do you know where to place the details? And a lot of people struggle with this, and it's really simple. Okay, think about it this way: if you are starting to go to gym, right, and you're building muscle, well, muscle is gonna be placed, or they're gonna grow in specific areas when you have, you know, when you're supposed to have muscle. Why? Because it makes sense in terms of design, right? So when you design something in Blender or plasticity, it doesn't matter. What you want to do is you want to first flesh out the outline, the design language of your model. Okay, so when I jump to Photoshop, I'm gonna be jumping back and forth a little bit, and we're gonna grab this just a model, which is, wait, let me find it. Do I even have it? Hang on, I don't have it. Let me see if I can actually snatch it. So now what I want to show you is this. Okay, let me just pop a white behind here, and I'm going to add a black layer here. Okay, you see now you have minus the cable, because the cable shouldn't be here, right? Now this is not ideal because it's not from the side, but you can kind of get the gist of the shape of this whole thing, right? And if it looks balanced, then you have yourself a really good model. If it doesn't, then you have a problem. Now, the blockout is the most important part, and when you're modeling something, you need to know where to cut stuff, where to divide stuff, when to add, you know, details, and the blockout itself should tell you when to do it. Let me explain, okay? Because it's a bit difficult to wrap your head around it. So initially I had this, you know, this whole shape. So it wasn't cut into pieces. It was just one shape. It was, you know, connected, and that was it, right? So why I decided to cut it this way? Well, I wanted to separate the front and the top, you know, the top of the bonnet, right, from the rest of the body. So this cut here was a no-brainer, and I wanted to follow more or less the curvature of the bevel here and make the top a little bit wider than the front, so the front's gonna appear more snappy, more kind of like sportsy. Okay, so there's gonna be like a thick bonnet and a, you know, small, narrower front. And this cut here was actually kind of, you know, low-key inspired by this cut here. Okay, and I thought that was a good idea, but I wanted to do it differently. Okay, so I cut this in here because I wanted to sort of offset the front, the cut on the front here, offset it at the back, right? But I wanted to also keep this entire area clean, especially that I had this cutout here on the front, right? So I wanted to have, you know, kind of a heavier front, and then really calm middle, and sort of you know, this cut on the bottom is going to be connecting to the details that are going to be related to this frame and also to this bottom shaft, right? So that was the concept. And then I wanted to, for the details to concentrate in this area. So first, I designed, this frame itself, right? So I designed this frame itself. There were no cuts here, and this cut here came first, right? This one, and then obviously I defined the shape of it and all the angles. That was important because again, this dip here and the elevation going up to the engine is going to be defining the main shape of the design language, right? And the rest came after this, so I was sort of adding elements based on what I was seeing, based on the angles, and based on what the design was telling me to do. And if you get stuck at any of this, at any stage, what you want to do is you want to go back to your references. You want to start looking for something that's going to spark, your ideas again. Okay, so let's say that I didn't know what I want to do with, I don't know, let's say this piece here, how I'm gonna, solve this. And in fact, in the beginning, I had this piece here, was full piece like this, going all the way down, and there was no cut here underneath, right? And I thought, well, hang on a second, it might look cooler if I'm going to cut it, make this hollow, re-emphasize this this hollow element here under the seat with another cut, and put some pipes and engine stuff underneath. So it's going to look more airy, lighter in form, because if this was just kind of like a massive, sort of a piece of mesh, it would look really heavy visually, optically. But because it's just cut through, it makes it look lighter. So the middle part of the vessel looks lighter, but the reason why I did that is because I knew it's going to be more detail. Okay, so I wanted to be lighter in form to accommodate more details, right? So it's going to be detailed but not overwhelming and not kind of like clunky, you know what I mean? So that was the idea, right? And then the back here, it was very simple. I wanted to simply, have a support for the seat, and also kind of some sort of like a mechanism here in the back that's going to push the seat forward, and then some kind of a framing around and connection to the engine. And the engine was really simple. I didn't really have any references for the engine. I just had some fun. That's about it. And these these pipes here were again sort of inspired by these elements here on this engine, right? And I wanted to keep it simple. I wanted to keep it more high-tech, so I didn't have any pipes running around, any cables. Everything is hidden underneath. They're supposed to be more advanced model, not some, homemade, garage-made nonsense, right? So that was the idea. And later on in Blender, I added these elements here in the bottom. You can see they're here, and I simply borrowed them and added them here in the bottom to just, add some more interest to the design. And the rest I simply left to the decals, right? Because you still have to remember, we're gonna be running decals on this thing, okay? So there you go. Now, the way you design this, you don't want to focus on one wall, of the building. You wanna, build it all around and kind of gradually bring it up. So the way I did that, I simply modeled the front here, right, first, and I never cut anything inside here. I never added these. I just had this basic, structure here and this cut here. And then I started to model this frame, because I wanted to see how this frame, a very basic shape, is going to play with the shape in the front. Because when you have too many details and you're going to drop too many details on your model, you're going to get distracted. Okay, the same way as, for example, if you look at this model, right, and you were asked to, I don't know, model this in Blender or whatever, you will be distracted by all these details, right? All these details, lights, highlights, planar shifts and all this. Because remember, the planar shifts like bevels and stuff, they're all gonna add detail because of highlights and shadows, This is also gonna add detail, like for example, here you got shadow, here you got this ridge on the bevel. This is all detail, right? So planar shift is gonna add a lot of detail to your model. So, and this lighting is quite harsh. You can see there are quite well-defined shadows underneath. So, they're gonna emphasize planar shifts, right? These shadows and highlights. So they're gonna add additional details, and this is all gonna kind of pollute your brain. When you're looking at the form and the design, you're gonna pollute your brain. So when you're working on the design, let's say you get some reference and you wanna kind of recreate it in Blender plasticity, whatever, and you wanna use your own kind of design ideas with that, then what you want to do, you want to paint over in Photoshop this stuff that's distracting, right? This is, you know, what I would suggest. So you want to grab a brush and literally paint over, right? Remove stuff, okay? So you see, when I'm gonna start doing this, you'll see how much simpler the design is gonna become, okay? And this is what you wanna do, right? You wanna remove all this nonsense and just keep it clean, okay? Keep it clean. You see what I mean? You get less distracted. The same here. All these things gonna distract you. So you wanna remove them, and you wanna focus on the main form of the design language, okay? Of the main, on the main features. That's all you care about, okay? In the beginning, right? You wanna remove all this nonsense here, all these distractions, right? These are decals, by the way, okay? All that can go, all this, and you're gonna start seeing a very plain form. You see, if I turn it on and on, you see how much distraction you have. And now you start focusing on this, how this frame flows, right? So that's what you want to do. Now, eventually with time, you're going to get better and you can turn them off in your head and kind of sketch in your head. For example, when I see something and I really like it, what I can do, I can start creating the rest of the model in my head. So I can grab an idea from someone's reference, from someone else's work, and I can start building upon it, right? In my head, and I can start seeing things. And also when I'm working in plasticity or Blender, when I model, when I add some element or create some element, I can feel whether it's gonna be going with my design or not. And this is going to be developed, you know, you're gonna develop this in time, but painting over in Photoshop and doing this stuff, you know, is going to help you really a lot, okay? So I would do this if you have troubles with being distracted by, you know, TikTok videos and details in Blender, okay, or plasticity, whatever. So all this nonsense, right, all this garbage here, I would just remove all of it, right? Look how simpler it's going to become. Watch, right? You see that? Now watch this. Okay, now you're focusing on the form, and that's the point, right? That's the point. So it's really important to understand that, and this is how that would work. Now let's talk about the hierarchy of the detailing. So first you need this, you know, this basic idea, the basic block out and the basic concept and the basic form. Once you have the basic form, and you're going to start breaking it into primary detail, which is basically, you know, stuff like this, for example, right? So this would be a primary detail, okay? Because what I'm doing is I'm breaking the block out into smaller bits. So I'm breaking it into primary detail. This is primary detail. They're gonna basically define, ooh, that's actually cool as well. They're gonna define, see, like when I took this off, right, I just realized if I cut it in here, this would look much more sportsy, okay? So if I wanted to make it more aggressive, that's what I could do, and I could simply extend this one in. So watch this, watch how fast this is going, right? I'm going to remove these, right? I'm gonna remove this one. In fact, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rotate it, okay, like this. And then what I could do is I could literally come here with a cut, okay? And I could cut it in here, right? So, you know, cut it in here. So nuke this one, okay? And I could grab this one, right? And bring it in, okay? Whoops. Hang on a second, let me just extrude it. All right, watch this. A very different design. Do you see that? I saw this when I removed this in. So that's what I'm talking about. When you do something, pay attention, because your brain's gonna be like, hang on a second, this looks cool, right? And you never know what you might, you know, end up with. And that's exactly how I work, right? So when I do something, that's how I think. And the same with details, okay? When, for example, I cut this one and then cut this one, I thought I need a cut here in the bottom, and I did that. And then I said, okay, that's enough. Let's move on and start creating the frame, because, you know, this is the next part we need to create before we're gonna come back here and do any more damage. Like, for example, this element and these elements here on the top, that were introduced later on. If I'm gonna hide them, look how simple this is gonna become, right? So I'm gonna hide all these, right? All this nonsense, and you see how simple this front becomes. Do you see that? Because you have no distraction. So when you have this simple shape, you just see the angles, the shape, all that. You can now work on the frame here, on this one, and the main piece on the other side, okay? So that's really simple. So if I focus on the front, right, just on these details, I may have been lost when I was, you know, creating this back end here. So you need to move gradually, okay? And when you do that, when you move gradually, your design will tell you where the details should be placed, okay? Because you will start seeing things when you're gonna be trying, to do something. You're gonna move something, cut something, and like, do I like it? I don't know. I'm gonna try this one, right? So that's what's gonna happen, and eventually you're gonna arrive at a shape that's gonna look, consistent and kind of like the whole thing's gonna make sense, right? So that's the design process. And then when I went to Blender and I was working on decals, okay, so decals, people say like, I see people placing decals all over the place, like all over the design, and they just don't make any bloody sense. Look, decals, if they're not placing themselves on your design, like immediately when you look at it, that means your design is shit. Because when you have a really good design, right, tertiary detail is gonna place itself. Because you'll just simply look at the concentration of detail islands, so where the detail is concentrated, and you want to push detail over there, or you want to connect areas with detail. Like for example, these two decals, right? If I remove them, right? So let me just hide them. See what they do is they connect this line here going down with the front of this bike. Okay, so they kind of act as a connector, right? This number here, it wouldn't work in the middle because you would destroy the entire negative space, which is so beautiful. And then I have these two decals, okay, placed around this number in a 2/3 combination. So 2/3 more or less, like 70% and then 30%, right? So they kind of frame it, but they offset, right? So they kind of break the symmetry. And also what they do, they bring you across the design to the front as well, okay? So that's really, really important. Now the lightings. The lights were actually the first thing I placed. So this light was first, this was second, this was third, and this was fourth. Why I placed them, and this was the last one actually, right? Because I wanted you to look through the design. So when I place lights, okay, on my design, I want to anchor your eye to specific areas to bring you through the entire design. In these lights are not accidental; they place with premeditation. Okay, you need to know exactly when to place because light's gonna be, these are actually blue lights, but if they were red or like yellow, they would be the only saturated element on this entire bike, right? Except maybe for this driver, but she's not really saturated. She's just, in a not a gray tone like the whole bike. This is why the attention goes actually over there, because she's actually the only more or less colorful element in the scene, but we're gonna talk about it in a minute. But the decals, again, they place themselves, okay? So the same with handles, like we have a handle here, handle here, handle here, and a handle here. They're not accidental, okay? They're also placed in specific areas to anchor you. Like for instance, if I never had anything in here, this would look a little bit too plain. Do you see what I mean? I need something there to kind of re-emphasize the bottom of the bike and also concentrate detail here around this pipe. So sometimes even what I do, I grab a camera in Blender and I set it up, and I'm gonna add decals from that specific angle or remove details from this specific angle. Like for example, from this angle, I'm not too crazy about these two elements clashing, the decal and this element. But if I remove this one, it doesn't look too good, okay? Because it's kind of like sandwich. It's sandwich between this, and this, So I'm breaking the sandwich pattern. And this is all right. If I remove this one, I'm also not too happy about it because this looks a little bit weird. So I left it, but this is the only area that actually annoys my OCD, okay? My designer's OCD, that actually kind of bothers me. But, on a complex scene like this, it's really difficult to remove all the crazy stuff, right? You will have to compromise. And this is not the bad thing. No one's gonna notice it except me. And the rest is just very simple. I wasn't really trying to overload the details because again, we have a lot of planar shifts on this model, and I like my models clean. I don't want them over detailed. I like them clean. I like clean surfaces. I like clean mats. This is my style. So I'm true to my style when I'm doing it here, right? And then you have these, tiny decals like here, the vent, you got some stickers here, here, across the design to kind of gently anchor your eyes. You got some stickers here on the bottom, the decals, we have some trim sheets here on the bottom. These are just pipes, and these are two decals, that basically, emulate the engines, right? Because I couldn't be bothered modeling them. If you can do it with decals, why would you bother? And then we have some trim sheets here on these elements. So these are all trim sheets and they look fantastic. So again, you know, the detailing very simple and very, very kind of calm. And I place detail exactly when I want it, exactly when the model was telling me to concentrate them. This sticker cost me a lot of problems because I really wasn't sure how to place it. I was placing it vertically, I didn't like it, and then I moved it here to the bottom. Was, you know, too much sandwiching with these horizontal pipes, and I ended up offsetting it a little bit to the top, closer to the handle, leaving a larger distance here between the top of this third element and the bottom of the decal. So I left it above the horizon, above the half of this element, towards the top. So you got like two clusters of decals and you kind of zigzag between them going to the top. So that was the idea and I kind of liked it, so I left it, right? This, you know, this decal is a little bit strong, but I thought that I'm just gonna stay consistent with the coloring and tone, and I said, fuck it, it's fine. Now the mats are also important, and this is actually quite something I see people struggle with. If you're gonna create a proper cut on your model, as in like you're going to break your main form of the model, the primary, the block out with primary detail in a correct way, the mats gonna place themselves. And let me tell you, I got two mats, well, three mats on this model, right? Either two or three. I think it's two. Mat number one is the main mat, and what I do usually is apply the mat to the whole model, right? I apply one mat to the whole model. When you do this way, you're not gonna be distracted because you're gonna be simply removing that mat from certain areas, replacing it with a brighter mat or darker mat, and you're gonna create this beautiful contrast, and then you can start feeling the balance, okay? So I apply this dark matte, which is by the way from our add-on Material Works, to the entire model, and I started to break it with this silver matte, right? Now, speaking about add-ons and our products, the only way to get your hands on them right now is through the program called the Hard Surface Academy, which is a personalized coaching program. So if you need help with Blender, plasticity, hard surface, or your goals as a designer in general, then, you know, go ahead, click the link in the video description, check out the page, watch the video, and schedule a call with us. It's a loose call, no commitments. We're gonna hop on a call, have a quick chat, and then if you're a good fit for the program, then you're gonna be able to join. So anyway, click the link in the video description and check out our Hard Surface Academy program. But going back to mats, so I've been using Material Works for it, our add-on for both mats and decals, because it comes with both, and it's a really fantastic way of doing this. It's very efficient. It's, you know, one of our best selling offers. And, you know, the way I do this, like I said, I apply matte to the whole model and then I break it. Okay, so I simply started to break with these two pieces, and then I was moving forward, and I knew that I don't want, you know, too many elements to stand out, and I wanted to guide you through the whole design basically by adding these mats to specific areas. So, you know, you guide it here through this whole front, you go up and you just glide here to the engine, or you go from the bottom, right? You go from the bottom here along this skid plate, going here up across this engine and then to the flaps at the back, right? So, you know, that was the idea of texturing this, which is really simple, right? Keep it simple. And then I think the third mat here is on the pipe. It's a different mat. It's a bit matte, kind of like a rubbery mat. So I use the third mat, but then again, you know, but there you go. You have two mats on the model, literally, and one mat on the pipe, and you don't need more. Okay, less is more. Okay, if you need to use more mats, maybe there's something wrong. Okay, maybe you should, you know, tone it down, and be very careful with colors, because color is gonna attract attention immediately. So unless you're designing something like, you know, for Borderlands game, which is colorful in its nature, then, you know, be careful with colors, because if I place any saturated colors on this model, even tiny ones, that would pull like a motherfucker. Okay, I mean, immediately you would just be drawn to it. If I put a tiny small light like this, but it was red, you would just look over there immediately, right? Because it's so powerful. Okay, so be very careful with visual anchors, and in fact, we have a, speaking of Academy, we have a fantastic course over there inside of it called Rendering University, which is going way more in depth into this subject than, you know, what I just said. But, you know, that's a really essential thing to understand, that these tiny saturated visual anchors going to really pull attention, so be careful. Now let's talk about the arrangements of this render. So first of all, it's a low angle, and the reason why it's low angle, because when you shoot from a lower angle like here, so we're shooting on the elevation, or the same elevation as the hovercraft, we're actually entering the world of the hovercraft. Look at pictures of kids. When you shoot a picture of a kid from a top, they're gonna look kind of like very regular, because that's how we see kids. But when you go down and you extend the lens, to go long lens, you entering the world of a child, and the pictures are becoming magical. Okay, like the same with pets. Okay, but in this case, I really like lowering the angle, and I like working with long lens. This is 135 millimeters, which is a telephoto lens, because I like to get personal. Okay, I like to get personal, I like to get close, I like to get intimate, right? It's it comes from my college times. Okay, but anyway, that's how I like shooting. That's my style. You may have a different style. Maybe it's a wide angle, maybe it's action shots, I don't know, but I'm telling you what I like doing and why I'm doing this. Okay, and then we have a very clever placement of the cable, and a very clever placement of these three people, and they're not accidental either. Now, the cable is supposed to lead you into the design from the right side, and the guy looking at the cable, you're gonna spot the guy because he's actually cut out. The whole silhouette is cut out because he's surrounded by white space. If this guy was actually overlapping with the design, it wouldn't look, anywhere near good, because you can't see the design language. The gap here was actually crucial. The same here. I wanted to create a space between them and the craft. Actually, I zoomed out the camera because I wanted to have more real estate to place him on the left hand side, because I wanted to shut them down in a triangle. Okay, there's a triangle in between them. Okay, and this triangle is actually framing the whole thing. So this guy is looking at the cable. You look at the cable, and the cable leads you to the ship. You look at the girl, and then she looks at this guy, and the guy looks back at the ship. So you're kind of bouncing in between them. But three humans are gonna be very powerful. They're going to be very powerful kind of anchors for you to look at, because we subconsciously look for people and human silhouettes. And because they are kind of, sort of looking at each other or pointing at something, you're going to be following that immediately. Okay. So again, these guys are not accidental. They were placed, with premeditation. Okay. With an intent. So that's important. Another thing, for example, tiny stuff, like for instance, if you zoom in here, the angle of this decal is actually agreeing with the angle of the craft. So even slight details and small kind of, things like this are also important, and I make sure that they kind of align. And that's why it feels so peaceful, because when you have details that fall into place, it's like a complete puzzle. You look at it and your brain is at peace. And when your brain is at peace, it's going to appreciate the final result. And the last thing I want to talk about is the text. Text actually took me probably 10 minutes, because I was first looking for the font. I have two different fonts in the image. Okay, I got this 45D, and I also have Nova. And I needed to find a font that's going to be agreeing with both of them. Also, something that's going to be filling out this, this space here in the bottom. And I tried different things, and they just didn't work with me. I was trying the Nova logo, didn't work. I was trying the Hyperion logo, didn't work. I was trying all kinds of different things, they didn't work. And then I was, thinking about the name of the project, etc. And I kind of came up with a name. I actually used ChatGPT for this one, and I kind of, bounced a few ideas, and then I landed on Project Vanguard, and I found the font, but it took me about 10 minutes to find the right font. Okay, so even that element was important for me. So you see, like, none of these things in this image is accidental. And if you really take time, and you're gonna spend time on creating not just the model, but starting with the idea. Okay, it's really important. Just take time to find reference. Don't rush this. Look for a day, 2 days, I don't give a shit. Okay, until you find something that's gonna speak to you. It's like doing something you don't like. Okay, only because, I don't know, you're gonna post something on ArtStation. You have to like it, you have to be into it. You have to like, holy shit, I really wanna make a Mac. I don't model when I don't feel like modeling, because then I know it's gonna be crap. Okay, so because my heart is not into it, right? So you need to pick something you really wanna do in that moment, and then just go with it, right? And make sure you're going to put, maximum effort into every single step. Don't rush it, and you're gonna have good results. So again, everything was essential. And then you have the post-processing, which is super important. And if you're skipping this step, you're fired, because this is the original render and it's fine, but it's a little bit, bland and needed a little bit of an oomph, right? I didn't really edit much. I did some contrast, some clarity. I make things pop. I put some film grain filter on it and a bit of coloring, but very delicate. And I wanted to keep it very kind of sort of clean and classy. And that was the idea behind it. And the text again wasn't supposed to overpower the design. It was supposed to kind of like create a base for the design that this hovercraft kind of lands on. Do you know what I mean? So that was the whole idea, and this is why the hovercraft is elevated in the frame, because it actually it's above the half of the image, so it's not in the middle, it's above the, like, in the 2/3, because I wanted to emphasize the fact it's hovering. Yeah, it's psychological. So and the same thing, with the guy here pointing upwards. So again, everything kind of, emphasizes that this craft is hovering. The same with the cable, plugs up, right? So there you go. So anyway, that's it. I hope it helps you. You guys, I've seen a lot of people struggling with this, and we've been coaching for a long time. Our members, we have like 700 members in coaching, and the questions I'm getting during the calls, weekly calls, or like, private DMs, whatever, because members who join our academy program have actually access to our private DMs. So if you have a problem, you can just DM us and we're going to help you out. So it's a really, really, personalized program. So again, check the link in the video description. So it's a fantastic offer. But anyway, going back, when I was on a coaching call, 99% of issues or questions or problems are related to either rendering, lighting, composition, and this nature of things. And this is very much connected to design. So when you really understand the design, or you really understand the framing, composition, lighting, you're going to understand the rest, because it's all interconnected. It's the same rules apply to everything, okay? This is why you shouldn't be neglecting any of these steps. Modeling is important, but it's not the most important thing. Because if you don't bring your model to the end, and you're not going to flesh it out and create a really polished image at the end, you will never gonna be taken seriously by anyone, especially maybe your future employers or someone who wants to hire you for a job, right? And you're gonna feel better too when you're going to bring something till the end and post this kind of a really nice polished project, even if it's a doodle, because honestly, that was just a doodle. I was actually streaming that on our public Discord. I think half of this modeling was streamed live up to decaling, and then I just render it on the next day. But it was just a doodle. I was just, hanging out with the guys and just modeling for fun. But it doesn't matter if it's for fun or is it for a project. Try to bring it till the end, because that's what's going to really separate you from an amateur or someone who is just, an average designer modeler. And you're gonna be basically standing out in the community. So that's that's what I think. But anyway, that's it for the video. I hope it helps you out, and if you lasted that long, I really recommend you to check the link in the video description. Check out the academy program, because it's really good, and read about it on the website, watch the video, and if you're interested, book a call with us. We're gonna hop on a call, have a chat, and see if we can help you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.